The world is a big place and it seems there's no shortage of mysteries. So from a violent poltergeist to mysterious lights, here we have 5 unsolved mysteries. The Guadalupe Mountains, located in West Texas and southern New Mexico, are said to be home to some of the richest gold mines in the world. This story was pretty widely distributed in the 1800s, and during the latter half of the century there were people actively looking for this lost Indian Spanish mine. If you've ever visited the Guadalupe Mountains, the first thing you probably notice is how beautiful they are. Ben Sublett, an old miner who lived during the 19th century, was supposed to have found a vein of gold once so valuable he could mine 10,000 worth of gold in a week. Unfortunately, the only evidence of his mine is a single hole in the ground, which is not much bigger than a man. Sublett was known as the town's liar because of his non-stop search for the treasure. Few took him seriously until one day he showed up to his local tavern with a pouch full of gold, and he bought drinks for the whole town. A number of unsuccessful efforts were made to try and pry the secret from him, and attempts were made to follow him to the secret mine, but they were met with the business end of his rifle. Even when Sublett's young son asked him where the gold was located, Sublett told him to find it himself. To this day, no one knows where the mine is located, and scientists don't believe large gold veins are even located in the Guadalupe Mountains. A similar case to this one is the lost Dutchman's gold. Somewhere in the Superstition Mountains of Arizona, there is reputed to be a gold mine so rich that if the walls are tapped with a hammer, nuggets of gold come tumbling down. The Apache are the only ones who know of a very rich gold mine in the Superstition Mountains. That is, until a family stumbled upon the site and started mining the gold. But their victory was short-lived because they were massacred by the Apache in 1850. Years later, an army doctor by the name of Thorne treats an injured Apache, who as a reward takes him to the mine. He was blindfolded and told he could take as much gold as he could carry. Thorne is later unable or unwilling to reveal the location of the mine. In 1880, the mine was again discovered by chance. The discoverers were 2 young US soldiers who appeared in the town of Pinal with their saddlebags full of gold. They said that the ore came from a funnel-shaped mine in the canyon near a sharp pinnacle of rock. Over time, much of the stories surrounding the mine have succumbed to legend, and now there exist many variations on the tales. Currently the area is a state park, Lost Dutchman State Park. Mining is prohibited, but that doesn't stop the 8,000 people every year who come to search for the lost gold. The McKenzie Poltergeist is one of the most famous attractions when taking the City of the Dead tour within the Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh, Scotland. George McKenzie was responsible for the deaths of 18,000 of his countrymen, during a period that was labelled the Killing Time. His reign came to an end in 1691 when he passed away. He was buried in a casket contained in the Black Mausoleum Tomb, a building located on the Greyfriars Kirkyard. In December of 1998, a homeless man wandered through Edinburgh on a stormy night. Seeking shelter from the night's downpour, he staggered into Greyfriars Kirkyard and broke into one of the old mausoleums. Inside the vault was pitch black, and the man decided to explore his surroundings. He removed an iron gate in the floor and descended a short twisting staircase, and entered a second chamber. There he came across 4 wooden coffins. The man began to smash open the caskets. As he did so, a hole suddenly opened beneath his feet and he fell through the wooden division into a third chamber, the existence of which had been previously unknown. The unfortunate intruder landed in a deep pit that had been used for illegally dumping those that had died from the plague. Despite being hundreds of years old, the pit had remained well sealed, and the corpses that greeted the unlucky tramp were far from skeletal. Not surprisingly, the man desperately fled the tomb, not stopping even when he cut his head on the tomb's entrance. The homeless man fled into Edinburgh's darkness. The vault the homeless man broke into was the Black Mausoleum. Once these stories hit the internet, the legend of the McKenzie Poltergeist in Greyfriars was born, and lit up the area like wildfire, attracting ghost hunters and seekers from every corner of the earth. Over 500 ghostly attacks have been reported by victims visiting the tomb, many of these injuries documented with photographs. So far, documented injuries by the McKenzie ghost include burns, skin gouges around the neck and abdomen, unexplained bruises, broken fingers, and feeling as if one's hair is being pulled. Some visitors have said they were kicked or punched by an invisible attacker. Others talk of feeling nausea or numbness. Strange smells or hallucinations such as walls and floor knocks. These have all occurred with multiple witnesses present. Some even claim the ghosts have followed them back to their home or hotel. Today, many people believe this graveyard is haunted by the McKenzie Poltergeist, an evil spirit whose hatred lives on from beyond the grave. The Marfa Lights are mysterious glowing orbs that appear in the desert outside the West Texas town of Marfa, and they've been baffling people for generations. According to witnesses, the Marfa Lights appear to be roughly the size of basketballs, and are described as white, blue, yellow, red, or other colours. Reportedly, the Marfa Lights hover, merge, twinkle, and split into two. There seems to be no way to predict when the lights will appear. They're seen in various weather conditions but only a dozen or so nights a year, and nobody knows for sure what they are. The Native Americans of the area thought the Marfa Lights were fallen stars. The first mentions of the lights comes from 1883, when cowhand Robert Reed Ellison claimed to have seen flickering lights one evening while driving a herd of cattle near Mitchell Flat. He assumed the lights were from Apache campfires. Ellison was told by other area settlers they often saw the lights too, but upon investigation they found no ashes or other evidence of a campfire. During World War II, pilots from nearby Midland Army Base Field tried to locate the source of the mysterious lights, but were unable to discover anything. Ben Macdouie is the biggest mountain in the Cairngorms, and the second highest in the UK. The summit rises from the southern part of a huge subarctic upland unique in the British Isles. It's a harsh environment where nothing grows, except for the hardest of alpine plants. When the clouds roll in, the summit can be shrouded for days. In winter, the weak northern sun does not penetrate the deep glens for weeks. Known as the Big Grey Man of Ben Macdouie, it's the name given to a creature said to live on the mountain. Stories about the Grey Man have been reported as early as 1791, though the most famous account was given in 1925 by a highly respected scientist and a mountaineer who was on Ben Macdouie in 1891. Actual sightings of this creature have been rare. Despite the lack of sightings, the Grey Man has often been described as being 3 meters in height, with very long arms and legs, an ape-like head and covered in short hair. The Grey Man has also sometimes been compared to the Yeti or the Bigfoot of North America. Nevertheless, the Grey Man is not a creature of flesh and bone, but has been likened to a ghost. Regardless, everyone who encountered this creature were filled with dread. Amongst the many theories, several suggest possible explanations. Foremost is that of the mountain spectre, a phenomenon which only occurs when an inversion or gaps in the cloud allow the viewer to see their own shadow cast upon a cloud. The effect is spooky, with a giant grey shadow stretching from your feet into the atmosphere, and in certain conditions is accompanied by a circular rainbow which surrounds the shadow. The Wallow Lake Monster, also known as Wally, is a lake monster alleged to inhabit Wallow Lake, Oregon. It's described as being roughly between 8 and 20 feet long and hump-shaped. A local legend among the Nez Perce tribe states that when the Nez Perce and Blackfeet were at war, the daughter of the Nez Perce chief fell in love with the son of the Blackfoot chief. One night the couple took a canoe from the Nez Perce camp and rowed out onto the lake. Eventually the rival tribes realised what was happening and set out after them. The monster then came up from the lake and attacked them, killing them all. To this day the Nez Perce do not venture out on the lake. An article was written in the local Wallow Chieftain newspaper on November 5, 1885, detailing a local resident's encounter with the monster. A prospector who refuses to give his name to the public was coming down from the south end on the lake last Friday evening in a ski shortly after dusk, when about midway to the lake he saw an animal about 50 yards to the right of the boat. It reared its head and neck up out of the water about 10 to 12 feet, but on setting him it immediately dived. He ceased rowing and gazed around in astonishment, for the strange apparition which he had just seen. When it raised about the same distance to the left, it gave a low bellow something like that of a cow. It also brought its body to the surface. which the witness states was about 100 feet in length. The monster glided along in sight for several hundred yards. It was too dark to see the animal distinctly, but it seemed to have a large flat head something like that of a hippopotamus, and its neck, which was about 10 feet in length, was as large around as a man's body. Now this story may have been coined in the imagination of the narrator, but he was very specific in his recital. However, it's a known fact that there is a tradition among the Indians that the lake has a big sea cow in it, which on one occasion many years ago came up one evening and swallowed a young warrior and his bride as they were gliding over the surface of the lake in a canoe. And to this day, an Indian of the tribes who formerly visited its shores cannot be induced to go upon its waters. The lake has been sounded to the depth of 270 feet, and it's a bare probability that some monster does inhabit its unexplored depths. Since then, there have been very few sightings of the creature. In 1932, 2 residents of the area saw the monster and described it as longer than their 11-foot boat. Irene Wiggins, who lived along the lake, claimed to have spotted the creature many times between 1945 and 1983. She described the monster's head as a big black thing like a hogshead, and estimated it weighed hundreds of pounds. In 1950, 3 people saw 2 monsters feeding on fish, the first being 16 feet long and the second being 8 feet long. In 1978, a couple claimed to see the creature twice. First, they saw 3 humps break the surface of the lake. Second, they watched an approximately 20-foot-long snake-like creature circle a certain portion of the lake for several minutes. In 1981, 2 men spotted the monster. So that was 5 unsolved mysteries. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more countdown videos.